Curtin Radio in Perth.
Now, this is a very interesting topic, actually, protecting the psychological safety of whistleblowers. Joining us now to talk about this is Mr. James Ritchie. He's risk, governance and safety expert at the Mindful Risk Groups, and I'm very pleased to say he joins us this afternoon. Good afternoon to you, James.
Hello, Jenny. Great to be back.
Yes, it's great to speak to you again, and we're going to catch up with sort of areas that you've moved into to make sure that they are protected.
Yeah, look, I guess since there's been some interesting changes in relation to the space around blowing or protecting whistleblowers, and really importantly, there's been some significant changes to psychological safety work legislation right across the country.
Yes, look, some recent legislation changes that impact whistleblowers, you're telling me here. What has happened there in that area?
So look, for some time now, there's always been an understanding in work health and safety legislation in Australia that it includes both physical and psychological health, whereas off the back of what's now known as the Boland Review, which was a legislative review right across the harmonised work health and safety jurisdictions in Australia, that a couple of years ago had delivered recommendations, one of which was really protecting and strengthening the provisions in legislation around the psychological safety of workers.
Yeah.
And as that then relates to whistleblowers, that includes people that speak up or speak out about wrongdoing at work.
Yeah. The anonymity is important, isn't it? Is that what you're actually implying here, that if they do come forth with very important information that could have a huge impact on people and business and so on, very important indeed, that they are never revealed, or they put something in place so that they can't be found out?
Yeah, so look, you're absolutely right, Jenny. I think it really comes down to what they call reprisal, dismissal, all those other areas that are really specifically referenced in relation to psychological safety, because the way the legislation works is that if a hazard occurs at work, that's what's called a psychosocial hazard that could lead to a psychological injury, that the employer has an obligation to protect workers from that. And in the instance of someone that's blowing the whistle, that would include making sure, absolutely, they're not sort of named and shamed, but also that they're not subjected to dismissals, bullying, reprisals and other forms of retribution.
Look, it really does take a strong person to feel very strongly about something they have seen to come forth and speak to the right people about it. And I can fully understand that these, how they would suffer if they were found out. It just must be horrendous. I mean, physical threats, psychological damage, like you said, it would be horrific.
Oh, I totally agree. I think, can you imagine the concept of effectively, I think we spoke about last time I was on your show, Jenny, this concept that Aussies hate dobbers and ninjas.
Yeah.
And I think it goes so much more beyond that, to the fact that if you see whether it's unethical or dishonest or illegal activity at work, to speak out against your colleagues and ultimately your employer, that's a fairly brave thing to do.
Very brave thing, and they are referred to as being unsung heroes, aren't they? And you would know more than anyone, I guess, around the world, or Australia here as well, people that have come forward and have prevented terrible things happening. Oh, look, absolutely. I think looking globally for a second, if you think about the recent Boeing scandal, and there's obviously that really interesting Netflix documentary on it as well that's worth looking at. But there's also been a suggestion that the Boeing whistleblowers were potentially threatened, and in some cases there's an inference that the deaths involving one of them may not have been accidental. So I guess that's the most extreme thing you can think of. Yeah, they're very brave people indeed. Are we talking about Richard Boyle and David McBride, or is that a different situation?
Yeah, look, I guess I'm conscious with that, Jenny. I wouldn't want to do anything to, I guess, sort of potentially damage proceedings in the High Court.
No, fair enough.
Richard Boyle's certainly now mounting a High Court appeal, but I think I would say that locally, Richard Boyle and David McBride, if you were to look at their cases, it's a little bit like, how'd you put it, being punished for jaywalking because you crossed the road to pull a baby off the middle of the road. That's the equivalent of what they'd be subjected to locally. So it's pretty strong stuff.
Changes their lives, that's for sure. And just on an international basis here, I suppose, we can't go past Julian Assange, can we, as a whistleblower? No. Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely.
Consequences. Yeah. Incredible. Now, what is the risk to a company if they don't protect those that blow the whistle?
Well, look, I think as I've mentioned a few times, I genuinely stand by the fact that the organisations we work with that have what we call a really active speaking up culture, they actually prevent scandals from occurring before they occur, in effect. So if you've got the right capacity to protect whistleblowers, then those whistleblowers can call out unethical or illegal conduct early, but it's also a mechanism that the company can have to protect their reputation rather than being the latest scandal on the front page of a tabloid newspaper.
How would that be carried out then? That's quite an operation to put the program like that in place, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's certainly where I've really only ever seen it occur is where you've got an extremely mature organisational culture within an organisation, and where you've got particularly a CEO and or a chair of the board that is 100% committed to that transparent speaking up culture or speaking up approach, and that's usually only comes from from people that have seen it work in other organisations. It can be a hard thing to get going, but the leadership and the tone at the top is critical to making it work, and then having a framework underneath where effectively everyone in all levels of the organisation is used to being able to both call out issues but also is expected, or I guess is comfortable with having their performance or their, I guess the things they do constructively criticise, but it does take a very mature organisation.
If people listening at the moment, James, they may be in business, they may have seen things going on. It could be something more trivial than that, but a safety issue needs to be attended to. How should a whistleblower go about getting people to know about this? Yeah.
Well, look, I think there's that old cliche when you talk about safety that it's the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. So I guess if you were to specifically think about the safety issues, for an example, I would encourage people to immediately raise issues that they see that might affect safety at work, because they ultimately don't want to be complicit in somebody getting injured or losing their life at work. And then how they should be able to do that should be talking directly to their supervisor, and then if there's not the capacity or the listening ear, then there really needs to be an independent representative in the organisation, whether it's an HR manager or someone like that they're able to raise that issue with.
You see, the situation would be if you've got management that perhaps know about a safety problem, or even worse, embezzlement, or they may be guilty of it themselves, heaven forbid. Yeah. But, they're not going to really carry that concern forward, are they?
No, and I think that's why, and I think you're absolutely right, Jenny, but that's hopefully why we're seeing a lot of sectors now, particularly those that deal with public purse money, whether it be local government, state government, and also now NDIS registered entities and a lot of charities. They're required by their regulator to have a whistleblower policy in place, which includes an independent mechanism.
Good, yeah.
So that if the issue is actually, you can't report an issue about your immediate manager to your immediate manager, so there needs to be a way for you to go around that chain anonymously.
Is that in place at the moment? Because it certainly should be, and the workers should be aware of how that can be carried out.
Yeah, look, so some sectors, particularly NDIS, and I would need to confirm, but I have a feeling that in some states related to aged care, that is also now coming out, because if you think about all these elder abuse and things like that, then those sectors certainly, and then obviously there's provisions within the Commonwealth Public Interest Disclosure Act, which is around any organisation, including local government, that deals with public purse.
Is the government actually stepping in to see these changes made, or is it up to the businesses, the companies themselves to implement it?
Well, look, I think, without being critical of regulators in general, because that can be an easy thing to do. in industries such as the NDIS, then it's up to the regulator to be enforcing that, which is great to see. And then I think in most of the states and territories in Australia, the safe work regulator is also in charge of enforcing the psychological safety related provisions, which would interact with the examples that we spoke about around whistleblowers, where they've called out an issue and then they suffer either bullying, demotion, some sort of maltreatment, which then puts them in a position where they're suffering a psychological injury at work.
National security is a big area, James, and of course I'm sure over the years people have come forward and said, well, this is what's happening and it shouldn't be, and that sort of thing. That is an area that's very touchy, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is, and I think that's, to speak to your earlier point, Jenny, that's where the Julian Assange thing comes in, that the whole the legalities of the whistleblower that calls out potentially government secrets or, arguably compromises national security. I think that's where, in the past, if you think about even right back to Agent Deep Throat, I think he was called, the original whistleblower related to Watergate, I think it was all about they were chased on the basis of the fact that they had illegally accessed or shared secret government information, which is such a grey issue. I don't know what your thoughts are, Jenny, but I continue to struggle with it.
Yeah. It is a very touchy subject, isn't it, for everyone? If they are in a position where they see some wrongdoing as to how they go about it in the first place, how do they get this information, a bit more information, James? If somebody listening knows of something, they don't quite know how to go. You have mentioned a few areas, but is there a website or anything like that they can get more information?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think the majority of your state and territory ombudsmen have a lot of really good information attached to their website, and then also now with the direct reference to psychological safety at work, there'll be relevant information on safe work websites relevant to the states and territories. And then beyond that, I think it's also absolutely worth looking at globally. There's a number of organisations, including the UN and the World Economic Forum, that publish some great publicly available information about both how to establish whistleblower frameworks and also how to I guess consider calling out wrongdoing.
Yeah, well, I think everybody would love to make the world a better place, James, that's for sure, but they don't want to put their head on the line, and I hope that they do get that protection that you're so much, going for, and we can all help them out and they do the right thing. We thank you so much, as always, for joining us. Let us know if there's any updates, won't you?
Excellent. Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate your time as always.
Anytime. Thank you, James. That was James Ritchie, Risk Governance and Safety Expert at the Mindful Risk Group.